You believe success begins with luck, or perhaps you think it starts with money, connections, or even circumstance. Many will tell you that education or opportunity determines your outcome. But the truth is far more powerful and far more personal. Success begins in the mind. It is born in thought, nurtured by belief, and made invincible through the cultivation of a positive mental attitude. Not just any attitude, but one that refuses to quit, one that persists beyond discouragement, one that turns obstacles into stepping stones. This is the force identified as the very foundation of greatness, the mental habit of persistence rooted in optimism. Life, as you know, is a relentless examiner. It does not test you once and then release you. It tests you every day through disappointments, betrayals, failures, and sudden setbacks. Each blow is an invitation to quit, to doubt, to abandon your purpose. But the individual who has trained his mind to maintain a positive attitude, regardless of circumstance, possesses a shield that no difficulty can pierce. This is not blind cheerfulness. It is a conscious mastery of thought, a refusal to surrender inner control to external events. If you master this one discipline, you hold the master key to every door of opportunity. Consider the law of dominant thoughts. Whatever occupies the majority of your mind takes shape in your life. Think defeat, and defeat will find you. Think doubt, and doubt will erode your confidence. Think poverty, and poverty will shadow your steps. But think victory, and conditions begin to conspire in your favor. Think abundance, and opportunities multiply. Think courage, and your very body fills with the energy to act boldly. Your thoughts are not passive. They are magnets, broadcasting frequencies that shape your reality. The subconscious mind does not discriminate between truth and falsehood, good or bad, helpful or harmful. It simply records what you repeat and manifests it outwardly. Therefore, if you want an attitude that never quits, you must first master the currents of your own thought life. Train yourself to dwell on victory, to see possibility where others see limitation, to believe in outcomes that have not yet materialized. For the mind is a garden, and unless you plant seeds of success daily, weeds of failure will grow by default. Quitting is the greatest enemy of success. Most people fail not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunity, but because they quit too soon. Think of Thomas Edison, who failed over 10,000 times before the invention of the light bulb. Think of Henry Ford, mocked for attempting to create an 8-cylinder engine when experts said it was impossible. Each of these men faced enough rejection to crush an ordinary spirit. Yet what separated them from the masses was not brilliance nor luck, but a mental attitude of persistence, an absolute refusal to surrender. Every rejection became fuel. Every failure became a lesson. Every obstacle became a test of worthiness. And through persistence they built empires. The question you must ask yourself is this: how many rejections does it take before you abandon your dream? How many failures before you lower your sights? How many obstacles before you convince yourself you were never meant to succeed? Every time you quit, you send a signal to your subconscious mind that surrender is acceptable. You program yourself for mediocrity. You weaken the spiritual muscle of persistence. But every time you push forward despite resistance, you program yourself for triumph. You strengthen your identity as someone who refuses to be conquered. And identity is destiny. If you wish to build a positive attitude that never quits, you must identify and conquer its enemies. Fear is the first and greatest enemy. Fear of criticism, fear of poverty, fear of rejection, fear of failure. Fear robs initiative and paralyzes potential. Doubt follows closely behind. Doubt whispers in your ear, asking, "What if I fail?" and drains the energy of conviction. Then come excuses, the subtle poison that convinces you that circumstances or other people determine your destiny, allowing you to shift responsibility away from yourself. Negativity spreads like infection. Complaining, gossiping, focusing on problems instead of solutions, and finally quitting, the silent assassin of ambition. If you allow any of these enemies to dominate, your attitude collapses and your purpose dies a slow death. Persistence is the backbone of greatness. A positive mental attitude without persistence is like a candle in the wind, shining for a moment, extinguished at the first storm. But a positive attitude fused with persistence is like a roaring fire, resilient, unshakable, growing stronger in the very face of wind. Persistence is not stubbornness, it is spiritual stamina. It is getting up after every fall. It is continuing to work when tired. It is believing when no evidence justifies belief. It is knocking on doors until they break, not because you are desperate, but because you are determined. And here is the secret. Persistence itself generates power. Every time you persist, you expand your capacity. Every time you refuse to quit, you harden your spirit. Every time you endure, you declare to the universe, I am worthy. And eventually the universe yields, but persistence alone is not enough. It must be married to faith. A positive mental attitude is not naive optimism. It is faith that you were not born to be defeated, faith that circumstances do not define you, faith that tomorrow will yield fruit if you plant today's seed. Faith is the fuel, action is the engine. Faith without action is daydreaming, and action without faith is drudgery. But faith combined with consistent action produces miracles. Understand that no one wakes up with a permanent, unbreakable attitude. It is forged through daily practice. It is built as a muscle through repetition and discipline. Begin your mornings with affirmations. Speak to yourself with power. I am capable. I am resilient. I am destined for greatness. Write daily gratitudes, for gratitude multiplies abundance and fixes the mind on what is working, not what is lacking. Visualize your goals as already achieved, for the mind must become familiar with victory before the body can create it. Guard your input, for the mind becomes what it consumes. Eliminate gossip, idle chatter, and destructive media, replacing them with wisdom and growth. Act daily toward your purpose, even in small steps, for daily compounding builds unstoppable momentum. Focus on the power of definiteness of purpose. Without it, your mind wanders, and a wandering mind is the playground of negativity. A definite purpose channels energy, ignites faith, and transforms pain into meaning. When you know exactly what you want and refuse to stop until it is achieved, setbacks lose their sting. Criticism becomes irrelevant. Failures become feedback. Purpose gives you a reason to fight, a reason to persist, a reason to rise. Without purpose, persistence fades. With purpose, persistence becomes inevitable. Yet even with purpose, your environment matters. Environment is amplifier. If you surround yourself with complainers, you will complain. If you live among the lazy, you will struggle to act. If you fill your ears with doubt, your mind will echo doubt. You must therefore become the guardian of your environment. Surround yourself with encouragers, with dreamers, with those who stretch you higher. Fill your home with reminders of your future, not your past. Protect your mornings from distraction. Reclaim your evenings from chaos. What you allow around you will either fertilize your growth or poison your roots. Guard your circle, for your circle is your mirror. And remember this final truth. A positive mental attitude that never quits is not an occasional state. It is not what you display on your best day. It is your average, your baseline, your default. It is how you think when no one is watching, how you act when no one is applauding, how you endure when no one is helping. It is forged in private before it is displayed in public. If you want to build it, you must practice daily emotional hygiene, cleaning out doubt, reframing fear, rejecting excuses, affirming belief, and acting with courage. The wealth of life does not belong to the most educated, nor the most talented, nor the most connected. It belongs to the one who refuses to quit. And refusal is not an act of desperation, it is an act of faith, an act of identity, an act of decision. Decide today that you will not surrender. No matter the obstacle, no matter the delay, no matter the rejection. Decide that your mental attitude will remain positive in the darkest night and strongest storm. Decide that persistence will be your companion, faith your guide, and purpose your compass. For when you decide, the universe begins to move in your favor. Opportunities appear. Allies emerge. Strength multiplies. And you will discover so clearly that the greatest secret of success is not external, but internal. It is not what happens to you, but what happens within you. Build a positive mental attitude that never quits, and you will not merely survive life, you will conquer it. If you have understood the foundation of a positive mental attitude, then you must also realize that knowledge without practice is wasted power. A strong mental attitude is not built through theory. It is forged through action. You cannot read about courage and suddenly be courageous. You must step into fearful situations and prove to yourself that you can rise. You cannot imagine persistence and suddenly be persistent. You must endure the days where nothing works and press forward anyway. The building of an unbreakable mind comes through trial, through daily choices, through the refusal to surrender when defeat whispers in your ear. What you rehearse in thought, you must confirm in action, or else your attitude will crumble the moment pressure comes. The mind is like a battlefield, and every day a war is waged between faith and fear, between persistence and surrender, between optimism and despair. The one that wins is the one you feed. If you constantly nourish thoughts of failure, you become your own saboteur. If you feed yourself doubt, you create paralysis. But if you feed faith, you create courage. If you feed optimism, you attract opportunity. And if you feed persistence, you make quitting impossible. Most people live unconscious of this war. They let thoughts come and go without discipline, and so their minds are hijacked by fear and negativity. The individual who builds a positive mental attitude that never quits is different. He stands guard at the door of his mind. He allows no destructive thought to plant itself. He replaces weakness with strength, fear with faith, doubt with conviction. He understands that mastery of life begins with mastery of thought. You must realize that every adversity contains within it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. This is not merely a comforting phrase, it is a law of life. When setbacks strike, the weak curse their fate, but the strong look for the seed. They ask, what can I learn? What can I gain? What can I transform from this? When Edison's laboratory burned down with years of work destroyed, he did not weep. He said, now we can start fresh. When obstacles appear, you can see them as curses or you can see them as opportunities to grow mental muscle. And here is the truth. Without adversity, you cannot build strength. Without rejection, you cannot build persistence. Without resistance, you cannot build power. Every failure is simply training. Every disappointment is sharpening your blade. And when you begin to see challenges this way, your attitude shifts from despair to determination, from complaint to conquest. A positive mental attitude that never quits requires more than just belief in yourself. It requires an ability to transform how you interpret events. The same event that breaks one man builds another. The difference is not the event, but the attitude toward it. Two men may lose their jobs. One says, "This is the end," and collapses. The other says, "This is the opportunity I needed to finally create my own path," and becomes wealthy. The difference lies in how they frame adversity. This is why I say that your only limitation is the one you set in your own mind. The world cannot defeat a man who refuses to see defeat as final. The world cannot break a woman who refuses to interpret loss as anything but temporary. But let me speak to you clearly. Positivity is not pretending everything is easy. It is not ignoring problems. It is not blind hope. It is the deliberate choice to face problems with solutions, to confront difficulty with courage, to treat setbacks as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. It is the discipline of refusing to indulge in self-pity, the decision to stop complaining, the determination to use your energy for building instead of blaming. Most people think a positive attitude is naive, but in reality, it is the highest form of power because it allows you to create solutions where others only see problems. It makes you resourceful, adaptive, and resilient. The danger of negativity is subtle. It begins with small complaints, small excuses, small doubts, until it becomes a habit. And once a habit, it is as difficult to break as any addiction. Negativity spreads like a virus. It infects your conversations, your actions, your relationships, your decisions. Soon you find yourself surrounded by others who complain, who doubt, who excuse, because like attracts like. And together you build an environment of failure. The only antidote is vigilance. Each time you catch yourself speaking a word of lack, replace it with a word of abundance. Each time you are tempted to complain, stop and give thanks. Each time you are tempted to quit, remind yourself that persistence always pays. Repetition of these small corrections builds the mental discipline that becomes your shield. You cannot build this attitude in isolation from your environment. As I said before, environment is amplifier. Your mind will either be lifted or poisoned by those around you. You cannot expect to think like a millionaire while spending your time with those who glorify poverty. You cannot build boldness while surrounded by those who celebrate fear. You cannot construct optimism while feeding your mind daily with media designed to create fear and anger. Guard your environment as you would guard your treasure, because your mind is more precious than any jewel. Surround yourself with people who inspire you, who challenge you, who demand your greatness. Place symbols of your goals in your environment so that every day you are reminded of where you are going. Protect your mornings from gossip, your evenings from distraction, and your mind from poison. Now let us speak of decision. The reason most people fail to build an unbreakable attitude is that they never fully decide. They dabble. They experiment. They say, "I'll try." But trying is weak. Decision is strong. To decide is to cut off all other possibilities. To decide is to burn the ships so there is no retreat. To decide is to declare, no matter what comes, I will not quit. That decision changes your entire psychology. It strengthens your will. It eliminates hesitation. It makes quitting impossible because quitting is no longer an option. The strongest attitudes are born in the moment of decision. The man who decides to succeed will persist through obstacles that would crush the undecided. The woman who decides to rise will endure rejections that would silence the hesitant. Decision transforms weakness into power. Once you decide, you must back your decision with daily discipline. Discipline is the bridge between belief and reality. Discipline is what allows a positive mental attitude to become a permanent state instead of a passing emotion. Discipline means you do what is required whether you feel like it or not. It means you persist in your affirmations, your gratitude, your actions, even on the days when your mind is tired and your body is weary. It means you guard your thoughts every day, not just when convenient. Discipline is not punishment. It is liberation, because it frees you from the slavery of moods, impulses, and external control. A man without discipline is a slave to circumstance. A man with discipline is a master of fate. If you wonder why so few maintain a positive mental attitude, it is because discipline is rare. People want easy results without sacrifice. They want the reward without the persistence. They want confidence without decision. But there is no shortcut. To build an attitude that never quits requires sacrifice. You must sacrifice laziness. You must sacrifice negativity. You must sacrifice the desire for immediate gratification. And in return, you gain strength, resilience, faith, and ultimate success. It is always a trade, the old weak self for the new powerful one. Finally, let us remember the role of belief. You do not receive what you want, you receive what you believe. Wanting is weak because it is rooted in lack. Believing is strong because it is rooted in certainty. The man who wants success still doubts. The man who believes in success already possesses it in spirit. Belief creates confidence. Belief radiates energy. Belief attracts resources. Belief transforms how others perceive you. When you believe deeply, people sense it. They cannot explain it. But they feel drawn to you. They trust you. They open doors for you. This is not magic. It is alignment. The world rewards those who carry certainty. If you wish to build a positive mental attitude that never quits, you must believe before you see, not see before you believe. So I say to you, every day is a test. Every thought is a seed. Every action is a declaration. Are you building strength or weakness? Are you programming persistence or surrender? Are you creating faith or fear? The choice is yours, and the consequences are inevitable. You are not a victim of fate. You are the author of your destiny. Build a mind that refuses to quit, and the world will eventually bow to your persistence. Build a positive attitude that endures all storms, and you will not only succeed, you will inspire others to rise with you. For the man who conquers his own mind is greater than the man who conquers 1,000 cities. And the woman who refuses to surrender her optimism, no matter the struggle, carries within her the seed of greatness. If you have walked with me this far, then you understand that the mind is the foundation of every victory or defeat, and that persistence fused with faith creates a force the world cannot deny. Yet let me take you deeper. For to build a positive mental attitude that never quits requires more than thoughts and beliefs. It requires a complete reorganization of how you see yourself, how you respond to life, and how you interpret the meaning of your existence. You must move from mere intellectual understanding to emotional embodiment. You must train not only your conscious mind, but also your subconscious spirit. For it is not enough to say you will persist. You must become persistence itself. When I studied the most successful men of my age, I discovered a universal truth. Each had suffered tremendous failures, humiliations, and defeats, yet each refused to accept those defeats as final. Andrew Carnegie began poor and uneducated, yet his determination and mental discipline created one of the largest fortunes in history. Henry Ford faced bankruptcy before building the automobile empire that revolutionized the world. Edison, mocked and ridiculed, continued experimenting when all logic said stop. What linked them was not intelligence, for many were no more intelligent than average men. It was not luck, for luck had little to do with repeated perseverance. What linked them was an unshakable belief that they would ultimately succeed, coupled with an unwillingness to quit. They had burned the word surrender out of their vocabulary. But how does one reach such a state? It begins with identity. Most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they carry within themselves an identity too small for their vision. They dream like kings, but think like beggars. They desire abundance, but believe they are unworthy. They set goals, but secretly doubt whether they can achieve them. And so when failure comes, they accept it as confirmation of their unworthiness. The secret then is to recondition your identity. You must believe that success is not something external to you, but something you are already destined to embody. You must train your mind to say, I am persistence. I am resilience. I am destined for greatness. When this belief saturates your spirit, quitting becomes impossible, because quitting would be a violation of who you believe yourself to be. The process of identity transformation requires repetition. Every day, you must rehearse the emotions of success before they manifest in the material world. You must imagine yourself already victorious, already strong, already unshakable. You must walk as if, talk as if, carry yourself as if. This is not deception, it is alignment. For the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between what is vividly imagined and what is real. And when you saturate your subconscious with images of victory, it begins to create circumstances that reflect that victory. But if you saturate it with fear, with lack, with defeat, then that is the reality it constructs. Your inner movie becomes your outer destiny. Do not misunderstand me. This is not about pretending problems do not exist. Problems will always exist. But the individual who trains his mind to carry a positive attitude sees problems differently. He interprets them as temporary, not permanent. He views them as specific, not universal. He looks for solutions rather than rehearsing complaints. And because he does this consistently, his subconscious begins to expect solutions. It begins to expect victory. And expectation is power. For the man who expects victory will search for it until he finds it, while the man who expects defeat will surrender before the battle is even finished. Now let us address the silent poison that kills more dreams than failure itself: discouragement. Discouragement is the assassin of persistence. It creeps in after repeated efforts yield no result, whispering that your labor is wasted. It tempts you to compare your progress with others, to measure your pace against their timeline, and in doing so, convinces you that you are behind. But remember this law: every seed has its own season. The farmer does not plant a seed and expect a tree overnight. He waters, he waits, he protects, he endures storms, and only after time does the harvest appear. Life operates by the same principle. Your persistence today may not yield fruit tomorrow, but in time, if you refuse to quit, the harvest is guaranteed. Discouragement is simply impatience in disguise. Do not confuse delay with denial. Delay is preparation. Denial comes only when you quit. Another enemy of persistence is the craving for external validation. Too many allow their positive attitude to depend on the opinions of others. They work hard so long as they are praised. They endure so long as others cheer. But the moment the applause fades, they falter. This is weakness. For if your faith depends on the validation of others, you will collapse the moment criticism comes. And criticism will always come. Every man or woman who has risen to greatness has been mocked, doubted, ridiculed. If they had allowed the opinions of the crowd to define their belief, history would not remember them. You must therefore build an attitude rooted in self-validation. You must decide that your persistence is justified, not because others see it, but because you have chosen it. When your validation comes from within,